Welcome back everybody, I hope you're all well. In today's video, I want to build an FM3 preset from scratch and I want to show you a few tips and tricks to make the whole process a little bit easier. If the FM3 is your first experience with a Fractal device, navigating it can seem a little bit daunting, but with this video, I want to take that edge off and I want to show you how to set up a good workflow for creating your own presets, because for me the magic of this particular device is being able to find the sounds in your head and really craft your own custom presets. So let's begin. We have this 12x4 grid that we can place blocks on the FM3, and I just kind of think of this like a big virtual pedal board. I can set up a bunch of different effects in any order that I like, and I can route them into one another any way that I like. So we could go to any of these spaces on the grid and place a block. I'm going to right click here. I'm going to start with an input block because my guitar is connected to input number 1. Then on the other side, I'm going to connect an output block. So I will right click and I'll drop output 1 over here. I'm then going to take this tab on the output 1 block. I'm going to click it, and then I'm going to click the tab on the end of the input 1 block. This is going to draw a long virtual cable between them. And each of these blocks in line, I can place effects on, and those effects will process signal in there. So let's start by adding an amp and a cab. I'm going to right click, we'll have an amp, and right next to it, I'm going to have a cabinet block. So at the moment, this is essentially mimicking a studio style setup where you would take an amplifier, plug it into a cabinet, and then place a microphone in front of that cabinet. Now, the first thing that I do is select my cabinet. If you haven't seen my 5-minute tones video on how to select a cabinet IR, go and watch that. I use the looper, and it basically just lets you figure out which sort of IR you like. You can save a bunch of your favorites and you can load them in. Alternatively, you can go to AxChange and you can download my user IRs. I'm going to use this one, LT TV Mix number 2. It is based around my Marshall cabinet with 4 25-watt greenbacks in there. I use it on just about everything, and I really like the way it sounds. You can go and grab it for free and load it into a user slot. Now, before I do anything with the amps, I go to the preamp tab and I set the low cut to 80. If I remember, I'll talk about that in a little bit at the end of the video. But for now, we have an amp and we have a cabinet. Let's select an amp. I'm going to go for one of my favorite amps in here, the Atomica High. Let's just hear that at stock settings with this cabinet. This is a Les Paul Custom with TV Jones P90s. Sounds like rock and roll. This is what we want. We can now go in and start dialing in the amp. I would suggest doing this before you play around with any effects. Just play around with the amp and the cabinet. I did a video last week looking at amps that sound great at stock settings. The Atomica is definitely one of them. So a question I get all the time is, what advanced parameters in the amp block should I use if I've never used a Fractal product before? My answer is none. Just stick to this authentic page, treat it like an amplifier. You don't have to use any of the advanced parameters to pull awesome tones with this. I mean, you can see I just popped this amp block in with the cabinet and it already sounds fantastic. With the Atomica, to me, it sounds like there's just a little bit too much low end there. I would just bring the depth control down a little bit. We have this. But otherwise, it sounds pretty slamming. Maybe I would kind of push the mids and the treble a little bit and back off the input drive slightly. I dig that. That is going to be kind of the bedrock of my tone in this particular video. So I'm pretty stoked with that. The next thing I would do is add a little bit of reverb to this, because we're running direct. Essentially what we're hearing is the sound of a microphone on a cabinet. It's like putting your ear right up to a speaker. It just kind of sounds quite direct, and if you're used to playing with an amplifier in a room, you're kind of missing out on all that room reverberation. So I'm going to start by adding a reverb block in here. I'll right click right at the end and I'll pop a reverb in. I love the London plate at the stock settings. I just turn the mix down to 10% and I am in my happy place. Check this out. Beautiful stuff. Another question is, Why am I connecting the reverb after the cabinet? Shouldn't I put it like between the amp and the cabinet, kind of mimicking an effects loop style scenario on a real amp? Two justifications for this. The first one is that my cabinet at the moment is in mono, and if I place the reverb before the cabinet will sum my stereo reverb down to mono, which I don't want. I want stereo time-based effects in this particular application, so I've got it after the cabinet. It's also mimicking a studio-style setup. You know, if you recorded your guitar amp and you put reverb and delay and other time-based effects on in the mix, either with plugins or outboard gear, this is how you would do it. So an easy thing to think about is just you're in the studio, you've mic'd your amp, and you've got all the world's best outboard gear to run on it in the mix. So that's the London Plate reverb. Again, play around with the reverb. I find you don't need as much mix as you think. You know, it's really tempting to go, oh, reverb, I'll set the mix at 40%. And, you know, it sounds like you're in this cavernous space, whereas 10% to me is just enough. It's not going to wash out your main guitar tone. Again, your mileage may vary. Dial it in to taste. Okay, so we've got an amp, a cab, and a reverb. Let's just go straight in and add some more effects in here now. So in a kind of real world rig, I would want a wah pedal. That sounds like a good thing to have. So I'll set a wah-wah up. A drive pedal would be kind of cool. Let's put a drive in this preset. Let's put it right there. Maybe I want to kind of boost my amp or something like that. I'll also bypass it. Let's add a delay after the amp block. I'll just kind of keep this pretty vanilla for now. And then, I don't know, let's add something that kind of goes swoosh and whirls around. The phaser and the flanger block in the Axe FX3 recently got an update, and they are in here. So before the drive, I always add a phaser, so I'm going to add a flanger for this example. We'll go with the ADA flanger in here, and again, I'll just kind of bypass that. So what we've got now, essentially, is a rig with some effects in it and an amp sound. And I think of this as a virtual pedal board hooked up to a MIDI switcher, and the MIDI switcher is our scenes function. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this preset, and then I'm going to do something else. If I know I'm going to have a lot of presets that use the same effects, where I'm just kind of basically only going to change the amp, I am going to go to Tools, or am I going to go to Tools? What am I going to do? No. I'm going to do this. I've got to remember where it is. Preset, and I'm going to save this as a preset template. And I can name that, let's just call it Basic. And I have a template that anytime I want to start a new preset, rather than have to connect everything up, I can just load up this basic template. All these blocks are going to be in there, and I can just kind of twist a few things and go. So we've got a basic rig in there with a few effects. Next, let's organize it into scenes. So I'm going to have scene 1 is just my amp, cab, and reverb. What I like to do at the start of this is to copy this scene to all the other scenes. So the kind of simplest setup is going to go to all the other scenes. Again, I'll just call this basic, and that is scene number 1. I'll hit save on that. Let's say scene 2, I want to have my drive pedal on, and I want my delay pedal on. I haven't dialed in these sounds just yet, but I'm going to hit save on that, and we'll call that my lead scene. So on scene 2, what I'm going to do is set all of this up the way I want a lead setup. So let's select a drive. Let's see, let's just go for the good old T808 OD. I'll set the drive low and the level up high. I'll turn the tone up a little bit. And for the delay, I'm going to select the stereo BBD. I'll just leave it at stock settings. This is what we get. Sounded pretty good. Let's hit save on that. If I go to scene 1 is going to save the bypass state of my blocks as well as the channel that the blocks are on. We'll talk about channels in a second. So I go back to scene 1. I've got my crunch sound. And then over on scene 2, I've got my lead sound. Now, I haven't set my wah up. I've got an external pedal attached to pedal jack number 1 on the wah. So I'm going to right click the control on the wah and set it to pedal number 1. I want this to automatically engage. So I'm going to turn auto engage on for a fast speed. and I will set the off value to 95% because I like my wah to be off when my toe is down. If you like it heel down, kind of like a Morley wah pedal or something, leave it at the stock value. Other than that, we should be pretty good to go. Now I've got the FM3 on my desk and not on the floor, which might seem like a kind of rookie error, but let's just make sure this wah auto engages. Awesome. Now I have a wah across all my scenes that I can turn on and off. If you want to learn more about assigning expression pedals, I set up a 4-channel expression pedal on a separate video. Similarly, with a lot of these, there are dedicated videos to the individual blocks, so you can watch my 5-minute tones series in there. Okay, so that's kind of the basics out of the way. We could have another scene over here. Let's say scene 3, I want to have my flanger on, but I also want my delay on. But I want a different delay sound. I want like a rhythmic delay sound here. So what I'm going to do on scene 3 is, rather than change the settings right here, these are my lead delay settings. I'm going to change the channel, which lets me have a whole set of different delay settings, different delay type. You can see I've got the stereo mind guy. I've got it set up here. I'm just going to set the mix to 50% on this, and I'm going to turn it on. And I've got this rhythmic delay now. That's kind of cool. Let's hit save there. Watch what happens to my delay settings when I go back to scene 2. It's going to go back to channel A. The scene is going to remember that the delay is not only on, but it's on channel B. When I go to scene 2, my delay is still on, but it's on channel A. And my drive pedal's coming on. Wonderful stuff. So you can see how the scenes and the channels are working together. Let's say, for example, that I don't want this drive pedal in here. I want to use the built-in boost in the amp block. So I'm going to actually just turn this into a shunt, meaning it's just like a cable in there. Let's go to the amp block, and in the preamp tab, you can set up an input boost. There are several input boost types. I love the CC boost in here. I'm just going to leave it at the stock settings. This is what it does when I turn it on. So it's a little kind of less mid-humpy than the tube screamer that I had before, but if it's on here, it's on in my other scenes. What I could do is basically just copy these settings over to channel B on the Atomica, but that's kind of like a lot of work. What I'm going to do instead is this. I'm going to assign a control switch to this particular function. So this will be control switch number 1. And this is just going to say, hey, I'm either on or I'm off. It's like a little roadie helping you out. What I'm going to do, though, is go to the controllers menu, and my control switches per scene, I'm going to set them all off, except for scene 2. Scene 2 was my lead scene. I wanted that boost on there, so I'll set that on. And now, like if I go over to scene 1, you can see this boost is off, and you can hear it off. But if I go to scene 2, the control switch activates, and I have more gain. How awesome is that? I've got a drive pedal in there without having to use a drive block. So if you're running a preset that's getting close to the CPU limit, this is a great workaround right there. Another thing, and I think this is one of the most overlooked features using Axe Edit, or in this case FM3 Edit, is the blocks library. Let's go to that wah again. I just use a kind of standard Clyde, but I have some of my favorite wah settings saved in here. For example, I have this 2-channel wah, which I use basically all the time, and I've just kind of got my favorite wah settings in there. For example, on channel A, the frequency max is a bit lower, the level's higher, and the controller is pre-assigned in there. And then on channel B, if I want it, I have a different wah setup where I'm using the graphic EQ, kind of copying these John Petrucci style wah settings. I have a video about that as well. And I didn't have to spend a whole bunch of time going in there and tweaking it. If you're like me, I love experimenting with the different amps in the FM3 and the Axe effects, but I find a lot of the time I just kind of assign my favorite effects in all the same presets. So let's say we went in and dialed in a delay where, I don't know, I set this to be a quarter note subdivision with the time ratio at 75% and the mix at like 30-ish% or something like that. So this is my lead delay. That's pretty glorious. I like that. What I can do is down here in the blocks library, let's say I love that delay sound. It's my go-to lead delay sound. I'm going to save this in my blocks library. Let's just call it awesome lead delay because it's an awesome lead delay. And let's just say now I don't know, I go in and I go into tweak as hell and I change a whole bunch of stuff here and I forget my favorite delay settings. I go, well, I can't remember how to get back. All I have to do is go to the block library, select awesome lead delay, and it's going to bring my settings up magically. And I would highly recommend doing the following thing. We're going to look at some of the factory presets and we're going to harvest them for awesome sounding blocks. Let's go to, what's another factory preset that I really like the sound of? This Andy's Message preset. I'm going to guess there's a pretty nice chorus on this. That is a really nice chorus. Let's save that to our blocks library. And I'll just call it summary. I'm going to save this to my blocks library as a basic comp. You get the idea with this. I'm going to go back to our preset over here, which was this one. And what I'm going to do now is from my blocks library, let's add that chorus in there. So we'll go, you can either drop the chorus block in or you can just go straight to the library, recall chorus. We got this summary chorus in there, which is probably going to sound a little bit over the top, but whatever. Over the top meaning fantastic. And let's add the compressor somewhere in here. I would normally place a compressor before the wah. So let's go, alternatively, you can go compressor, and then you can go to your blocks library, and this is my basic compressor. Alrighty, so now, and I know this is all happening on my lead scene, which I don't want the chorus on the lead scene. I might have a fourth scene over here, which has no delay, but it has the chorus and it has the compressor. And we get this. I don't mind the taste right there. So now I have a 4-scene preset with all the effects that I want. And I've basically just kind of used a little trick where I go into some of the pre-existing presets. For example, if you like the presets that I change, that I post, and you kind of go, yeah, this is a cool preset, but Leon always uses the Atomica High and the Mark IV, and I don't want to use those amps. I just want to steal his lead delay settings. You can download one of my presets, load it up, save the delay to your blocks library, and then go and do whatever you want. So we saw templates. We saw the kind of basic way to connect things up in here. We used the blocks library. If you take anything away from this video, start using the blocks library. It's going to make your life so much easier. I didn't get into foot switch assignments here. I'll do a separate video on that. Again, let me know what you'd like to see in that particular video. And we used my favorite thing, the control switch, the little control switch in there, our little roadie that can turn on the built-in amp boost. There are a whole bunch of other things we could do, for example, like set up an auto wah or use modifiers to control the delay level or something. But I've already kind of done videos on those either for the Axe FX3 or the FM3 or back in the day on the AX8, and you can go and check those out. But hopefully this gives you just kind of a good idea of what it's like to build a preset. Now, because I saved that as a template, and because I kind of saved this preset over here, if I now go to a blank preset, I can just go preset, new from template, and I've got my basic template over here. Boom, it all loads in there, and I could say go in here and I've got some amps in my block library like this one right here, which is a kind of modified plexi thing, and I can just drop it straight in and I've got a plexi tone. happy days. Or, you know, I could load up my favorite Mark IV settings that I use for ragdoll shows. And this just avoids having to go, oh, what am I doing? There's over 200 amps. I don't know what to do. There's over 1,000 cabinets. There's all these delays. You know, it avoids option paralysis. And it basically lets you turn this unit into your own customizable amp and effect library. And I absolutely love that just by using templates and the blocks library. If you have any further questions, let me know in the comments. I will try to do some more, I guess, fundamentals videos like this on the FM3. So let me know what you would like to see included on those in the future. Until next time, stay excellent, be good to one another, and thanks for watching the video. Cheers.